Hello Aquarius and welcome to my channel. I am Ulrich, I'm a Lenormand card reader, but this time we will use a financial deck for your card reading. The deck contains 44 cards and the playing is done with 3 cards, which is you see here in front of me. You can also see 4 objects here in front of me on the table, meaning we will do 4 readings for each astrological sign for the month of August 2021, and this video here is for Aquarius. From these 4 objects that you see here, you choose or you pick one that you think relates most to your personality, or you choose one you feel most comfortable with. This object of your choice, it should or it will relate the best to your personal situation or your financial situation or the advice that you are receiving from the cards. Of course, you can watch all 4 videos related to the Aquarius sign, and after you watched all 4, you can then decide which object or symbol is fitting your personal card reading the best. The matches here represent the fire element or the fire sign. The stone represents the earth element. The aerosol sprayer represents the air element, and the shell represents the water element. So Aquarius, here we go for your card reading for August 2021. Hello Aquarius and welcome to the Shell or the Water group for the financial card reading for August 2021. You can see here the 3 cards in front of me. The first card means overconsumption. The second card means evolution, meaning everything has an evolution in life. And this means if you give something, you need to see it's well organized. It means like charity well organized, but I will explain. First, the first card here, it's about overconsumption. So here, this card means we are daily confronted with certain advertisements, and this has an impact on our personality. Sometimes we can no longer make the distinction between essential needs and the things that are already luxury. Essential obligations are no longer the same as with our parents. So while these people aspired for their basic needs, today there are different basic needs. For instance, many of us cannot imagine a world without a cell phone or a laptop or internet access, and many of us also cannot imagine a world without travel, although now we are confronted with the fact that it's possible. Anyway, this card asks you to evaluate your real needs within this new formed society. And you need to ask yourself the question, are you happier or less happy than the generations before you? For example, your parents or your grandparents. This means like overconsumption is like a drug. The more material goods you have, the more you want. It's like a hyperconsumption. And this card tells us it's, in a way, it's blinding us. We cannot see anymore what makes us happy. So this card asks you to determine what are your minimum needs and make the distinction between luxury and non-essential expenses. This card asks you to make cutbacks of things that you don't need. And it asks you also, would you be unhappy if those superficial attributes disappear out of your life? I don't mean a cell phone, but I mean things that you don't actually need, like the last pair of shoes that you bought or the last electronic gadget that you don't actually need it. That's what I mean here. So this card tells you to learn to live according to the needs that you actually have and not what society or publicity or marketing dictates us. This is what this card tells us. It asks you and it tells you that your wallet and your mind also will be better off. Then here, the next card is evolution. Progress is part of life, and we all evolve over the years. We are not the same anymore since we were 21 years old. So also the decades, they have evolution. Like for instance, 20 years ago, you would have found it unusual to pay large amount for instance, for certain connections. A phone was essential, but we could not imagine that now, for instance, internet connections are essential in our daily life. So we have several expenses that are added that didn't exist in the past. So your expenses and your needs, they are increasing. So this card asks you to eliminate what you don't actually need, like things you pay, subscriptions out of the past that are no longer essential and no longer important today. This card asks you to review that and get rid of them. What you don't need to pay for it. It has no purpose and you still pay for it, and you can use this money for the next card we will see later. For instance, if you no longer receive phone calls on your landline, what is the purpose of the landline? It has no purpose. The only thing you do is you pay for it, and it has no actual substantial reason to keeping it. For instance, TV channels, a lot of people watch no longer TV on the TV channels, they watch TV on the internet. So you ask yourself, is the subscription on the TV channels really necessary? Except, of course, if you are interested in specialized networks, but that is something else. That is then something particular for you. But this goes over the basics that are no longer necessary. It also asks you, for instance, like if you have a subscription on a newspaper, do you still want to read it in your hands, or can you adapt to the version on the internet? Maybe it saves you 50%. This card asks you to re-evaluate all those small expenses, your monthly payments, and asks you to adjust on current times and things that you don't really need for adjusting them. Then the last card is about well-organized gifts and certain ways of spending. Probably you are a charitable person, or this group is, and you spend probably a lot of money to other people. You give them gifts, you take pleasure in spoiling your loved ones. But this card asks you, were these gifts was it really necessary? They were so expensive. Will your children or your nephews love you less if you pamper them less? This card asks you to evaluate the impact on your daily life and in your budget. Well-ordered charity, it starts by yourself. If your generosity, for instance, leads to problems or something like that, it contributes also to your financial distress. It has no place. Before you give to others, first secure yourself. Build up a safety cushion, eliminate unnecessary expenses. This is what this card tells you. Don't overconsume. We already see here, all of it is like for reorganizing your expenses for this month. So the cards ask you here to reorganize your expenses. If you give something, this card asks you to build up a safety cushion. Like it asks you to stimulate your own future rather than to give trivia to loved ones they don't really need. Maybe they appreciate more your time you invest in them, because time is the most expensive attribute we know in our current society, because we all have time limits and there are only 24 hours in a day. So this card asks you to remove the essential from the unnecessary. So if you do so, this card tells you you will be able to establish a wallet which will allow you to give healthy generosity. You see the eggs in the basket here. This card asks you to put your eggs in your own basket. This card asks you to go with the flow of times, and this card tells you to stop things that you don't need. So, Aquarius, for the month of August, this is all. I hope you enjoyed my card reading. It's a different angle with these cards. If you enjoy, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for doing so, and see you maybe next time. Bye-bye for now. Hello, Aquarius, and welcome to the Air or the Aerosol group. We have the 3 cards here for you for this month. The first card is about heritage, but actually the general idea of this card is don't rely on things to come, rely on yourself. This card is about that we buy things that are unnecessary. And the last card is here, is about satisfying yourself for, it's like a psychological balance you make for yourself, for balancing for your hard work. This is what it means, but I will explain in detail. Heritage here, it means, for instance, some people of this group might not see the necessity of accumulating savings for retirement. This is what this card is about. Because probably your parents are well off and you expect that this money to come in the future to you, and it probably will. But there is always a but. This card tells you to not to be fools and not to rely on your parents' money or any kind of finances that are possible. It tells you to rely on yourself. It tells you you need to see this in a double way. If your parents are unfit already and they are maybe close to the end, that is possible that you will get the money soon, but it's not a good thing to rely on in all circumstances. Also, it tells you you did not actually read their will. Maybe something is going on, because mostly with this card, there's something going on. You have not read the will, and you are not sure you are the sole heir, and you will not be sure until the lawyer reads the will in front of you. Also, the life expectancy of many older people over the past decades is increased. So your parents will probably live much longer than their ancestors. And adding to that, as they get older, they may need to use their savings to pay for services. They need to sell their house for their accommodation, for adjustments to their life. And you cannot blame them, because they also gathered this money and they saved for it. So you cannot blame them. So this card asks you to think about all these things. Also, we need to add then that there are third parties may be involved. You never know if your mother or father will not succumb to the young Venus or the Cupid living next door, or they met on the internet and they will not decide to favor them in expense of the descendants. An inheritance can be part of the retirement analysis, but it should be nevertheless be treated with a certain wisdom. With the times we have currently and with the current education, coming back to that, it's not surprisingly that your parents go in their 80s. So plan your old days independently and you will come out in a more positive way. Then we have the superflu here. What does that mean? This asks you if you made purchases lately, if those were really necessary in the last month. How much money has gone up without actually generating its value? What did you spend that you didn't actually need? So it asks you to output your bills, your credit cards, your debit card statements, and what are the small expenses you paid cash for and that you already forgotten about. This card asks you if you could have done without all these incidental costs. Would you be able to have avoided them? You probably were, because else this card would not be here. But it asks you also, with these small amounts that you paid for, what could you have offered yourself in the future that is really necessary? It tells you that probably you spend more than you think. With this money that you spent, you can accumulate attractive amounts for adjusting your house, repayment of debt, or actually here investing in your retirement. That's why this card is here. So you have drawn this card to think about unnecessary superficial things and also about discard. These are two ideas that require your attention. So if you adjust to this situation or you think about it, you will make an important step forward towards your financial security. This card is a card that is very common in our current society. It's about, we live in a world of overconsumption. Everything is possible. We can order everything online, from food to whatever it is you want. But we must be aware of the following. Happiness don't come with the purchase of a fleeting object. It gives you, I know it gives you, because this card says immediate satisfaction, it gives you a feeling of satisfaction if you buy something. Some people are very sensitive for this. If they buy a pair of shoes or if they buy a toy, an electronic toy, they are very sensitive for it, and it gives like an immediate satisfaction. But this card asks you to ask yourself, how long does this feeling last? And if you're honest to yourself, you will know, and you know it doesn't last very long. Sometimes after, maybe there is even a feeling of guilt or like a feeling of doubt. If we watch the TV and we follow all the commercials and the influence of media, it's like we can no longer be fulfilled without being dressed with the most expensive clothes, the dream electronics. We buy the car of the year, and every year a new car, and you work harder and harder, and forgetting this feeling of satisfaction. But the multiplication of all these small pleasures, you need to think for yourself if this really make you feel fulfilled. It asks you to pull yourself together and to be aware of this nefast trend. It doesn't guarantee your lasting happiness. If you do so, your life and your wallet will severely increase in a positive balance, and probably you will feel more happy if you don't make these unnecessary expenses anymore. So this card asks you to control your impulses for buying. This card asks you to eliminate purchases that are not necessary. And this card tells you to take care of your future and your retirement. So, Aquarius, for the month of August, for the Air Group, this is all for now. I hope you enjoyed this card reading. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for doing so, and see you maybe next time. Bye-bye for now. Hello, Aquarius, and welcome to the Stone or the Earth Group for the month of August for the financial card reading. The first card we see here is a card about superstitious things that we buy, but I will explain in detail. This is about financial education, that we need to pay attention to learn our children the value about money. And this card is about repayment of certain debts or reevaluate certain debts that you have. I just explained. So the first card we have here, but this card asks you, how many superstitious purchases did you make, and would you have been able to avoid these? How much money go up in smoke without actually generating a value that it should have had? This asks you to think for a while, to output your bills, your credit, your debit card, your statements, and put everything together. And adding to that, what did you pay in cash, what you already forgotten about? Could you have done without these things? So calculate them, all these incidental costs. Would you have been able to avoid them? You probably were. Then this card asks you, with all these superficial expenses from the last months, because this is not only now, this is from the last month, how much money would you have been able to save? Like the majority of the population, you're probably spending a lot more on frivolous articles than you think. By limiting your extras, you can accumulate serious amounts of money, and we see the pig here next to the savings. So you would be able to make serious savings that are probably interesting for the future related to your children. But we come later on to that. This card you have is drawn for you to give you the opportunity to think about superficious, unnecessary things, habits you have today. And if you do so, it tells you you will take a serious step, an educative step for yourself forward. Related to that, this card tells you also that we need to teach ourselves about how money works. You need to educate your children about financial matters. Your household, it requires a certain cash flow management. The money doesn't probably fall from the trees where you live. So this card asks you a question like, did your children ever come up to you and you are in the store and they said to you, of course, mom or dad, you can pay. Look how many cards there you have in your wallet. The point of this card is that you need to educate your children. Where does the money come from? How it's managed, how you work with it, and you need to teach this to your children or your offspring. It's important that you give them an awareness because we are living in a hyper-consuming world. And if you don't teach them, they will never turn into knowledgeable consumers. They will not be aware what is happening around them because they don't have an example. So talk to your kids about money, break the taboo, inform them, make them aware of healthy practices involved with money. By teaching them for working for good foundation, you will help them to build a future and a better heritage. This is what this card tells you, and also it's related to yourself. Then we have the last card here. This is about repayment of debts. So this card asks you to, if you have accumulated certain debts, and if you need a certain repayment strategy. If you do, this card tells you not to be discouraged. It's by small amounts that you get there, and don't give up the game before you started it. Secondly, you need to make, this card tells you to make a schedule, like a list of your loans, and write down the loans that you have. And also you need to add the rates of the loans, of the credit cards, for instance. These are priorities. You must first review and pay a minimum required for all your regular bills, which is normal, which is essential, like food, water, drink, house, rent, the things that we are essential for us. And then you need to check the difference in percentages of your credit cards. You pay, if your card is in a below zero, you pay an interest. There is a difference in certain cards, and cards in general that are more flexible have very high interest rates. This card urges you to check out these percentages. I know sometimes it's difficult, I'm aware of that, but this card asks you to put the things on the table and open your eyes. Look at the percentages. Sometimes these percentages are enormous. This card asks you to get rid of the cards with the high percentages. You need to put cash in these cards, and the less credit charges, interests you will pay, the more money you will be able to pay capital in the other areas. So finally, because this is a card about people being in debt mode. So if you are in debt mode, it asks you also to rearrange and the way you spend money. You need to take care of your financial situation and pull yourself together and look in the mirror. When you have reduced your debts, because I think this will require an adjustment, you will then be able, after you adjust it, to have a less restrictive lifestyle. So this card tells you to have a clear overview about learning others, going with money, about spending what is not necessary, and recalculating your debts. So Aquarius, for the Stone Group, this is all. I hope you enjoyed your card reading. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for doing so. and see you maybe next time. Bye-bye for now. Hello, Aquarius, and welcome to the fire or the matches group. We see your cards here for the month of August. So the first card that you see here, it probably tells you that you want or you wait for an increase of salary. The second card tells you that financially seen, time is not always our friend. And the last card tells you to become a little bit more old-fashioned and pay cash. We're going to go into the details now and we put this thing together. So here, I already mentioned this, you're probably waiting on some increase in salary. Maybe you worked hard, you're expecting a promotion. But here on this card, there is a but. You probably will progress in the company, but this card asks you to think if this increase in salary would do you that much good. Your answer that you're telling me is probably yes. This card tells you to not be so sure of it. Regardless of what we earn, your annually, your manual, your monthly salary, what really improves your financial condition is your ability to adjust the expenses to your income. An increase of income, it don't have a necessary positive effect on your expenses and on your improvement. Often it works in a negative way. The financial increase comes from the salary and it has the reversed effect. Now, on the other hand, you need to see that you have full authority or control over your own expenses. So it's imperative here, this card says, that you a priori learn to limit yourself. That's the first and the most important thing to do. So you need to invest your efforts in better management of daily expenses in relation to your earnings, adjust your spending to what you earn. If you have certain expenses, you can change your behavior of buying, and instead of increasing your income, you adjust your income. That's why you see the balance here. You need to learn how to balance what is necessary, what is not necessary. You need to see that the scale will balance in your advantage by adjusting the way you spend. So you will, if you do so, you will improve your overall situation. Then the next card, it means that time is not always our friend regarding to money, meaning the time in general makes a certain situation worse, because if you have interests to pay, these interests, they continue running. If you have certain debts, the interests will increase if you don't repay the capital. This card tells you, or it asks you, if you put your head in the sand for your current situation. Like this card asks you if you're willing to see your situation. This card asks you to put yourself in charge. Don't wait on the holidays. Don't wait on the next holiday or the next New Year's for your next New Year's resolution to take action. It will only worsen your situation, this card says. Of course, everything is relative, but if this card is here, it means something is off. So to secure yourself financially, you need to actually radically change the habits that led you to this current situation. We already saw here the adjustment. Here we see the confirmation. So this card asks you to do things in the old-fashioned way, because this card is old-fashioned. Also, take out paper and a pencil or use your computer and analyze your situation financially. Like, don't wait any longer. Just take the reins of your budget and rush your situation, your expenses, and your savings in an advancement. You need to reflect here, and you need to know that time is not your friend if you have debts. Here, this card asks you to adjust the way you pay. I'm going to explain myself. This card asks you if you still pay cash. Probably your answer is no, because most of us, we pay with credit cards. This card asks you, do you really know in details what you spend? Probably your answer is no again. So this card asks you, do you want to take control over your expenses, over your finances? So the way to do so, this card advises you, is to start paying cash only. In a psychological point of view, if you have money actually in your wallet and you get it out and you pay it to the cashier or whatever person you need to pay for, it causes us a psychological sense of pain to hand over paper money. Because with cards, we don't have an actual touching feeling. We touch nothing. So actually, every time you open your wallet, you will see actually the banknotes disappearing. And you ask yourself, oh, I'm already there. It's empty again. So unconsciously, you will make it more easy and quick connect between the two different payment methods. And you will prevent yourself from buying unnecessary things. We need to see this also from the point of view from the banks. And it's no coincidence that traders and banks, they are happy to gradually eliminate all paper money to support our society where overconsumption is constantly increasing, and virtual payment is of course essential for supporting this economic growth, between brackets, sometimes unnecessary growth. This card asks you to take charge of your wallet. Don't extend things. Take charge of your wallet and pay cash for all your purchases for 1 or 2 or 3, or maybe for the month to come, because this is a monthly. And notice the difference that you will have in your spending behavior. It will give you a way to regain control over the money. So this card asks you, are you willing to take that challenge and go back to the old-fashioned way? So we come back here, the first card. An increase in salary will not necessarily improve your salary. Time is not your friends related to debts or money, and try to pay cash for regaining a certain control over your money. So Aquarius, for the fire group, this is all for this month. I hope you enjoyed this card reading. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, and thank you for doing so. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.